Finally, Hyundai are coming out with an electric version of their Staria or Staria van, which I think is super, super nice. It's going to be very, very, very tempting to buy one, even though I literally don't need 13 more seats, but I would love one of those vans. I've seen a few of them, and I've sat in them and fanboyed over them, even though I'm not really a Hyundai fan. I just think it's a super cool looking van. And I like how Hyundai's drive. Really, really nice. They do also sell it with a diesel engine, which is really, really weird, I think. And as I read earlier, someone else said, it is not the engine to go into a futuristic vehicle like this. You'd have to agree, I think. A big chuggy diesel, even if it's got a DPF on it and they quieten it down, it's still a diesel. So you can currently buy it with a 1.6 litre turbo hybrid, but I think where it will sell in big numbers is when it's an EV, a complete solid EV with a big battery, not a 60 or 70 or 75 kilowatt hour, 84 kilowatt hour. So it is going to be available as a proper EV, 84 kilowatt hour battery. Unsure of the chemistry at this point. Hopefully LFP chemistry, because I will rave on it about it, I think. But I hope they don't use NMC or NCM chemistry, because then I think 84 kilowatt hour, a good quality battery. It's a Hyundai, so they'll probably use a bit of common sense and put some air conditioning on the batteries and liquid cooling on it, suck out the heat. And you could really suggest that to people, because Hyundais and Kias these days quite commonly these days are doing 200,000 miles. So with petrol or diesel engines. So you would imagine the EV is going to be built reasonably well, I think, to have a full and happy, healthy life in it. So not a piece of rubbish. They're good cars and they drive really, really well. So I think realistically it will have a range of about 400 kilometers, something like that. If you drive very carefully, maybe you could get 450 if you drive at 90 kilometers per hour or something like that. And I think if it isn't winter as well, depending on if they use a heat pump or not, and if it's very, very cold. No idea about the price at all, but where I think this could shine is for families or for people that want to camp places, such as me. I would love it. I rip out the seats, have a big empty space. I wouldn't buy the camper van version, and I'd get the base version, and I'd build my own little kitchen in it and my little bed and stuff. You can buy it as a 5 or 7 seater now, but you can also get up to 15 seats in some markets if you ask for it. Actually, I think if you took all the back seats out, you can make your own awesome motorhome, because we really don't need too much if you're going to do that sort of thing. You don't need to have super fancy stuff, although when you do look at the pictures, I'll try and put 1 or 2 on the screen now for you. They look really good, don't they? But they always ask for silly money when you buy factory motorhomes like that, or when they fit kitchens and stuff. And you could probably do it yourself if you're happy to spend a few days on it. Or you could just buy it as a motorhome if you're rich, basically, or well off, because I think it's basically a giant battery on wheels, so you can run your heating, your air conditioning, sleep in it, etc. And I'm not usually into big vehicles at all, but I have a soft spot for these sort of vans because they drive like cars. And even if you've driven a transporter, a VW transporter, you'll know exactly what I mean, or a Ford Transit, you'll know exactly what I mean. There's something about vans like this, they really drive kind of like comparable to a car, and I really like them for a long time, these sort of vans. I've never owned one, I've only rented them and driven other people's. Really, really nice, even when they feel quite balanced, which is weird and a bit suspicious. I'm not so sure how they do that. Again, when you drive a ute or a pickup truck, like for example, I've lived in Australia. I know some people think they're practical, but in reality, they are farm vehicles and they're not very practical at all. And they drive like a dog. They drive terrible, I think. None of them, even the brand new Isuzus, they just don't drive very good. And but I understand the attraction to lobbing stuff in the back of an empty tray and driving off. But in Australia, everything has to be super, super tied down. Otherwise, the police will give you a big fine. I just don't think the dream is there. And I think utes used to be really cool prior to that big boom in big utes. So when utes used to be like the Ford Falcon with a tray on the back, or what's the other one called? There's another one, a Proton Jimbuck, I think it is. Really, really cool, with a little 1.3 litre petrol engine. I think I've spoken to people there in Australia who are 50, 60 years old or more, and there was a time where utes were not really large like they are now, and everyone basically even 18-year-olds and whatnot, people eaters, they have a big ute. I just don't rate utes. I just don't think they're very good to drive. They're not very efficient. They're not very comfortable. They bounce like this over all the bumps. They have dirt tires on them. They sound terrible. People put snorkels on them unnecessarily because they never go in the water. I just don't get it. However, in the UK, vans, which I have noticed an increase in vans, and I have looked at data, vans such as this, the Volkswagen Transporter, the Ford Transit, and this Hyundai, this style of van is becoming quite quickly much more common in Australia, because actually it's really useful to have a metal box with nice lovely doors and air conditioning. You can put all your tools in, you can even build shelves in it. It's just better, I think. It's just better. You can even sit in the back out of the sun if you're in Australia, or in England. You can sit in the back and have your sandwich and have a coffee out of the rain. And I think you can only get benefits for them. So for that reason, I'm a big fan, and more on that in a minute. So I say this because the Staria, or Staria, is actually the same platform as the Hyundai ST1. I'll put a picture on the screen for you, which is the same vehicle, but it basically is for delivering things, or tradespeople when they're electricians and things like that. Way better for you, I think, because all of your stuff is safer. Tradespeople have expensive stuff, tools. Even if you just look at some basic tools, if you've got a set of snap-on spanners, they're like $300 Australian. Really, really expensive. So to have that stuff in a van is considerably safer, I think. And out of the heat, out of the rain, no sun damage, that sort of thing. Obviously I've got a soft spot for this van. I hope it's under $60,000 Australia when it does go to Australia. I hope it's under £35,000 in the UK. I really do hope so. And in Australia, in England, for example, we really don't mind Hyundai and Kia vehicles. But there's just a lot of people don't like Chinese things. But actually, Chinese vehicles like the BYDs and the MGs, comparable quality, I think, to Hyundai. But it's a lot easier to recommend a Hyundai these days, simply because there's less people slating them. But all very, very good. Hyundais are really, really good. I would genuinely get one with my own money these days, I think. And I have actually looked at Hyundai. So not this last couple of months, but I have looked at them. So please let me know what you're thinking in the comments below. And I'm Ben Alexander, and I make EV news videos most days, almost every day. I can't confidently say every day these days because I sometimes miss a day or two. Thank you very much for your time watching. It's very nice of you to give your time to watch my stuff. And I'll also remember I have a Facebook group if you just want to bat ideas around and chat to people who are like-minded, who like EVs globally. Here's the Facebook page.